All right, everybody, welcome to coverage of the top eight of the February Mana Trader series. My name's Corey. That's Anuraag. We're going to be bringing you coverage all day here of the top eight. Yesterday, we had a long, grueling day of 9 rounds, and we crowned a top eight here of a lot of really good players. Anuraag, how you feeling?
I'm looking forward to it. It's the top 8 of an event is always it's just got that different atmosphere, and now we're gonna see like the killers who have done extremely well over the 9 rounds from yesterday and how they're gonna play out, how they're preparing because given that we had a lot of factors, like open deck lists and like knowing your opponents, what kind of prep work they may have done overnight, that kind of deal. It's gonna be a different type of magic, much more serious and heavyweighted.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to be playing for a lot more money. And let's check out that bracket of the players that we are going to be watching today. We got, like you were saying, just a bunch of absolute stone cold killers here. Dom Harvey, Capriso on his third top eight in a row for the Mana Trader series. Top eighted the one right before December, the November tournament. I can't remember the format to qualify for the December tournament, then wins the December tournament. It's like, yeah, you know what? I guess I'll play this February one as well. And it's top eighting here again. So impressive stuff. That was our number one seed. Playing up again. Instead of butchering all these names, you can read it, y'all. So these are the names instead of me absolutely butchering some of these names. Moto names instead of actual names. Always a challenge. Another one of the notable players there, Twinless Twin, there on the bottom. That is going to be the player that we're going to be following. And the King at 3603. Twinless Twin has been also just on a tear. Playing Murktide, of course, kind of his number one deck that is Max. Met him at an SCG not too long ago. Really nice guy. So let's take a look at Max's list, Twinless Twins. And he is playing Murktide here, kind of the go-to deck. Anurag, tell me a little bit about Murktide here.
Yeah, so this is a pretty powerful deck that really focuses on having like a lean curve. You can see a lot of one drops in Ragavan and Dragon's Rage Channeler, cheap threats like Ledger Shredder, and you really just want to have as much interaction as possible to sort of disrupt your opponent while dealing damage. You may see a strategy like this very similar in Legacy, just like the Is It Delver decks that are tearing that format apart. And here you're doing basically the same thing. You can see copies of Spell Pierce, Counter Spell, Lightning Bolt, and Unholy Heat, Spell Snare, and then to top off the curve, you've got Murktide Regent, Big Daddy there to sort of just cross the finish line from game states out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just really, I know you're a big Legacy gamer here. Even I was watching a little bit of your Legacy stream a little bit ago. Gotta love it. So this like is basically just is a Delver, right?
That is the best analogy that I would use. You're very low
Yeah.
to the ground and you want to just do more things than your opponent. And one of the key elements of this deck, you'll see it in Legacy Vintage and not in Pioneer anymore, but expressive iteration is what lets this deck sort of sustain itself, have that viability in the late game, early game, mid game, every stage.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the best card draws we've ever seen. So let's take a look at Twinless Twins' opponent here, playing Creativity here. And this one's Jund Creativity. A little bit of a different list here, Anurag. You like this one?
I love Creativity through and through. I mean, sitting
Yeah,
behind
me
Reed
too,
Duke
man. Me
watching
too.
Yeah, watching him win the Pro Tour with Creativity, I'm like, you know what? I really want to try this, but maybe in Modern with a couple more powerful cards.
Yep.
Um, so just talking about this deck list high level, Indomitable Creativity is the namesake of the deck. It's what this deck is based around, and essentially this is just a way to cheat in really strong creatures from your deck into play. Archon of Cruelty is the go-to target here, and there are a lot of other support tools that we're also going to see. Ren and 6 is a really powerful mid-range tool that sort of sustains needing a wide amount of lands for just getting your Dwarven mines and you know just the utility that Ren and 6 provides, but also
Yep.
you'll see like a little bit of a graveyard package here with Persist as well. You can loot away Archon of Cruelty with like Fable of the Mirror Breaker and then bring it back with cards like Persist, and then just your generic Thoughtseize, Terminate, all those sort of good Rakdos Jund cards that give you value.
Yeah, this is an interesting one to me. This is a lot different than some of the other creativity lists that we've been seeing. Some of the other ones that even we're going to see in this top eight, creativity, spoiler alert, had one heck of a weekend here, putting another copy into the top eight, and I believe another one in ninth. So one of the decks that wasn't our number one deck by any means, but had a lot of success. Collective Brutality and Bitter Reunion in this list too is kind of wild. Just another way to discard Archon on turn 2 and then bring it back on turn 3. You can also live the dream of thought seizing yourself and then persisting it for the old turn 2. Probably not what we're going to see in this matchup, but honestly, you never know. I mean, there's like one spell snare and like one spell pierce in the main deck of Twinless Twins. So yeah, interesting stuff. So now let's start from the top of our bracket. That's going to be the match we are going to be watching now, but let's take a look at Dom Harvey's list. So this is Rakdos Scam. This deck was something that I didn't necessarily think was going to have such a great weekend, but Dom's list, especially with having Seasoned Pyromancer here, maybe over some numbers of Fables, main deck Blood Moons, and then maxing out on Terminates in the main. There's always some kind of Terminates, but really maxing out on all 3 copies, which is pretty stock throughout the 75 in the main deck for Murktide matchups and stuff like this was a really cool list, and Dom made it look good. Anuraag, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got to watch multiple matches where Dom was playing against Is It Murktide, which, according to our metagame, was the most played deck in the tournament yesterday in the Swiss portion. And having that sort of teched out list with, the Terminates, with cards like Blood Moon for, other matchups like, Four Color maybe,
Yeah.
it just really paid off. Also, we also cannot forget the key element of the deck here, which is like, the scam itself, right? You play the turn 1 elemental, then you combine it with something like a Malakir Rebirth, Undying Malice, or Feign Death to bring back a really, really beefy creature, but also getting a lot of ETBs that stifle your opponent's development. And so, Dom just like he knew when to do what with this deck in which matchup, and it was a pleasure to watch, and I'm really excited to see how his top 8 experience is going to unfold.
Would you say he knew when to hold him and he knew when to fold him? Was that the direction that you would say, or no? I'm gonna go with no.
Do
Okay,
you hear the crickets
absolutely.
chirping there,
On
Corey?
to the next deck there. Yeah, absolutely. All right, this is going to be Dom's opponent here. So this is the 8 seed that snuck in a good old scammeroo mirror match, and this is more the list that I usually see. The Dot the Voidwalkers in the main, a little bit more aggressively slanted, but overall, kind of the same deck. Really cool stuff here. A lot more one-ofs, even Phyrexian Flesh Gorger. That's an interesting one to me, but I guess if you I'm thinking if you Undying Malice or Fang Death that, it probably comes back as the bigger one. I would
It does
assume.
what you want. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I would assume it does the good thing. So yeah, really cool stuff here. Notice 2 more Magus of the Moons in this sideboard. Dom had a total of 5 moon effects. So you can tell these scam players do not want to lose against any kind of big mana. So let's take a look at our number 2 seed playing Crashing Footfalls, our only Rhino deck in the top 8 here. I'm trying to jump around and really keep our director on his toes here. So tell me a little bit about the Stampede, Jumanji, or just Team of Rhinos if you're being lame.
Yeah.
I like
So this
Jumanji, but whatever.
I like that one too. Just get some dice rolling in here. But no, this is a very
Yeah.
powerful deck we've seen for a small amount of time here. This is our one of our 2 de facto Cascade decks in the format: Shardless Agent and Violent Outburst to put Crashing Footfalls on the stack, get some Rhinos in play, and then you can see that the deck is basically built entirely around the parameter of Cascade, right? So we don't have Lightning Bolt in this deck. We don't have like Spell Pierce or Flusterstorm. We have unique cards like Dead Gone, Fire Ice, cards that have that CMC above the 3 mana threshold in order to not get in the way of Crashing Footfalls. And then we also have, Force of Negation. A great addition to this deck from Modern Horizons 2 are the elementals that you can see in the top left there: Fury, Subtlety, and Endurance. This deck is looking to get a lot of pressure into play really fast, and then again, disrupt the opponent, have a lot of answers and tools to make sure that we can cross the finish line with our 4/4 trampling Rhinos.
Yeah, absolutely. This deck always, for me, toes the line of being completely unplayable garbage to like the best deck on any given weekend when players are not ready for all these free spells and stuff like that. And it looked pretty good this weekend. So let's check out their opponent. And as we check out this list, players are getting seated right about now. So, and we're gonna jump in right as they do that. But for now, we're gonna check out all the lists. And here is another breakout deck of the weekend, not only on this tournament, but kind of, I would say worldwide, because the one and only 6'2" Mason Clark top aided and won his RCQ with 4-color nonsense. He's kind of the ambassador of this. It made a bold statement that it's no longer money pile anymore. It's mom mid range. So we're gonna have to change that deck list here at some point because that's too sweet of a nickname. So what do you think of this one?
This is probably one of the few decks that I would gravitate towards as just a my transition from Legacy to Modern. Everything about this deck is just powerful, sweet. You're only playing the best cards, and then after that, you're tying it together with a pretty janky mana base, all things considered, but functional enough to cast all your spells on curve. So you see like cards like Ren and Six and Teferi, excellent value. Omnath being the core of this deck, being able to bridge you from the early game to the mid game to the late game, and then the removal spells that come alongside it: Solitude, Prismatic Ending, Leyline Binding, and then of course, like you mentioned, I think really is bringing this deck back into the forefront of the metagame is Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. This is a new card from Phyrexia. All
Oh
will be
yeah, this
one, and
one's
it
so
does.
sweet.
It
So
is
sweet.
absolutely sweet. So its ability allows you to double up on your triggers while denying your opponents. And in the modern metagame specifically, this card plays a unique role because when the format is so predicated on Solitude and Leyline Binding as answers for Elish Norn, you don't have access to that, so you have to find creative ways to take care of this Phyrexian Praetor. And I want to see it in play at least one time, hopefully in this top 8, and I want to see it do some really strong things.
Yeah, and 7 toughness. If it has over Unholy Heat range, Elish Norn feels pretty close to unkillable to me. And, even stopping the combo, if you're playing, let's say, Jeskai grinding breach, anything like that, you can't Thassa's Oracle and stuff. So, yeah, I agree. I think this card is really good. I think the only thing it's missing for your taste is Mince and Boo. I guess is that Omnath in this deck? I think that's the
The
Mince and Boo at
equivalent.
home, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? Mon, can I have the
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's check out our number 3 seed here. Looks like we have another creativity list that was NBDF. And yeah, this is the more traditional creativity list that we've seen. Leyline's Binding playing a ton of different triomes so that you can set that powerful card up. But you are sacrificing a little bit of the speed and the consistency that we saw in the Jund list a little bit earlier. But needless to say, this is still doing the powerful thing, transmogrify or creativity in an Archon. I saw that one already. Let's check out the opponent here. All right, just kidding. Forget checking out the opponent because it does look like we are ready for our very first top 8 match here between Twinless Twins and the King. And now we will hopefully have all the hand cams here if everybody listened. And we will also be starting all the top 8s at the same time and then jumping into them and try to catch as much action as we can. The one thing we don't want to do is stall the game in any way. So we want to just make sure these players are allowed to play their game.
Yeah, looks like the King on the play here for game number 1, Blood Crypt into Thoughtseize here. And we'll get a look at what's going to be discarded very shortly. But yeah, this is going to be a pretty interesting matchup. Corey, I want you to tell me, like, the early game, what should we expect from both sides in terms of early game development and the cards that we want to see in the key cards in the matchup, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say oh wow, is this Thoughtseize? Okay, no, it is at Twinless Twin. All right, so I believe this is the hand cam for the King, and it's kind of looking at all those cards. But the main kind of thing is for the King, you want to see those discard your cruelty, maybe be able to bring it back, Fable the Mirror Breaker, kind of everything that we have here for the King. And then Twinless Twin, this pretty traditional is it Murktide plan. You want to play Ragavan, you want to back it up with counter spells and stuff like that. So maybe we're still waiting on the hand cam for Twinless. Okay.
Okay. Well, we can see a little bit from the Thoughtseize that's been revealed here as turn 2 is going to be Bitter Reunion. Corey, I want your opinion on this. The turn 1 Thoughtseize from DeKing opted to take Lightning Bolt instead of the Ragavan. How do you feel about that?
I feel good about it mostly because there was 2 Ragavans, so like it's kind of brutal to just take one of the redundant cards. But yeah, Lightning Bolt itself is not super good. Besides the fact that indomitable creativity on the Fable token, I guess. So yeah, that was kind of strange to me as well. There.
All right. Well, looks like we're going to get to turn 3 here, which means maybe Fable of the Mirror Breaker is going to get to do some work. Second copy of Indomitable Creativity is the pickup here. Things are coasting by here. Maybe this is the reason to take the Lightning Bolt, is to keep that Goblin token alive.
Yeah, and I mean the Goblin token is a big deal. We'll see if Twinless drew a counter spell or something like that. That would be quite brutal for Fable here, but does have creativity times two plus Scalding Tarn. So yeah, this is a big deal, and I believe the King does still have dwarfs as well. Trying to do a dead dwarfs thing, but yeah, it didn't land. It didn't land.
The king of the dwarves. I got you. Yeah.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, that's why I have you here. You're the brains. You're the
Now,
brains.
what's
So.
really interesting too is the addition of Bitter Reunion. I would normally say Bitter Reunion for something like an Archon, just to get into play and get a hasty swing in as well. It's a big life swing chunk of damage and stuff like that. As we see Fable of the Mirrorbreaker get counterspelled, but also reserve the right to make your Goblin token hasty as well. So really good draw there from Twinless Twin actually.
Yeah, no, counterspell was great there dealing with that. Now it is going to be available to just go Scalding Tarn and make a dwarf and then creativity it and just kind of go for it. And when you're at 5 life, there's no choice. Like the King's going to have to go for it. Yeah, still pretty much having to go for it. I guess you
Yeah.
do have kind of both of the if you run down this and push the other one, I guess you have that on lockdown. So yeah, this isn't bad.
Okay. Yeah, what's notable is that the King is choosing to play a little bit more safely than otherwise, because, like you mentioned, there's two options. One, get rid of the Ragavan here. You've got Fatal Push to hold up for the other one. The other is just, all the way, go as hard as you can, fetch Dwarven Mind, make the token, Indomitable Creativity, risk it all. I suppose by doing the Ren and 6 line, you get to get a land next turn, and then Creativity plus activate Bitter Reunion for a massive life point gain.
That or creativity for 2, where you can
Yeah,
just have 2 Scalding Tarns and then they need 2 removal spells or 1 counter spell.
yeah.
Usually you see the creativity for 2, but sometimes you don't want to put both tokens at risk, even though, most of the time, especially from this deck, from Murktide, you still have to spend 2 removal spells on it.
And this is the exact scenario I also feel like Is It Murktide wants to be in, right? This is what I was talking about earlier, where you have all these cheap threats and enough disruption. Look at the King, already at 5 life. There's still a Murktide in hand to have to deal with. This is gonna be pretty tricky.
Okay, so end of second main phase 2, going for the dress down to just cycle. There was an option, and I think this is what Max was really thinking about is do I want to save dress down and just be able to let you have 2 archons that don't have abilities? Or do I want to just and just say that that plan's no good and try to find a counter spell? And I would agree with Twinless Twin here. I don't think dress down would be enough. You still have to beat those 6/6s.
Wow, and this is actually terrifying. We know about the second Ragavan in the hand. Murktide is only being deployed, and there's still 2 mana left open. I'd be really scared.
Oh, Thoughtseize off the top was an insane draw. Now you're able to Thoughtseize, make sure there isn't a counter spell, and tick up Ren and 6 to go get another Dwarven Mine or a mountain. Here's the problem. If there's a lightning bolt, you're just kind of dead.
Yeah, this is actually really terrifying. I guess you're probably dead to lightning bolt no matter what, so you just pretend like it's not there.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, you are just dead to lightning bolt no matter what. Because even if you just creativity now, yeah, basically, I think you just have to go to 1 here. You start with the Thoughtseize. If the bolt's there, whatever, move on to the next game. If it's not, go to 1, Scalding Tarn, get another Dwarven Mine, creativity, Archon forces Murktide out of there. Then you go back up to 4 life, so you're out of bolt range. And then you have a 6/6 and a 1/1 dwarf up against Ragavan and 3 mystery cards. So that was a big draw. That's the line I think I would be going for, Anuraag.
Yeah, and we can see it's pretty complicated here to King kind of in the tank here trying to figure out, assess all the options because this is likely the turn that will decide the outcome of this game. After this, it's just, going through the motions. And so, yeah,
No,
we'll
no,
see
no, no,
Thoughtseize
no.
now.
This is duh turn. Okay? And he's in duh tank, okay? We gotta make sure the king gets duh respect here.
Oh,
The
wow. And
counter
check this
spell
out.
was there. The counter spell was there. If you didn't top deck that, the game was over. But instead, now, I mean, an Archon's in play. Everything I was saying earlier is going to happen. And what a draw there from DeKing.
Crazy
Impressive.
turn of events here from like just being near death to now probably just in the can't lose portion of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, outside of the like expressive iteration into double bolt nonsense type draws,
Yeah.
because even Unholy Heat is not live anymore. You discard one of those Regavans, you can play Shredder, discard another card, but with only 2 types, yeah, it's pretty much the expressive iteration double bolt range here. Wow, what a draw.
Yeah. And then to back it up too, there's a second copy of Indomitable Creativity in the hand here for the King. So that's going to be great to, should something go wrong, there's a backup plan.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe we saw from King there is 4 Archons. There's one already discarded. So there is only 3 Archons to be fair. So this creativity only hitting one other copy. Shucks. I guess you only get one more 6/6 that's unbeatable.
Could also give it haste with the Bitter Reunion in play too.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely can and probably will to just
Yeah.
end this game next turn. So
And so this is kind of interesting, Corey. Maybe tell me about like how. So really, very clearly, there are upsides and downsides to playing something like the Jund version versus the. Okay, yeah, we're gonna see the King take the win here. Twinless Twin realizing no draws here to get me out of this situation. But yeah, we'll jump into sideboarding first. We'll come back to this topic a little bit later. But looking at
yeah,
the sideboard, there's a couple elementals, Fury and Subtlety, Seasoned Pyromancer and a Braid, Spell Pierce, Flusterstorm, Minor Misstep, Unlicensed Hearse, Blood Moon, and Engineered Explosives. Of these cards, what's the most exciting for you?
Spell Pierce probably. Spell Pierce has been notoriously pretty much, an all-star against them because, well, if games look like this where Murktide's trying to play that tempo game plan, having that 1 mana disruption for a turn like we just saw is going to be ideal. Outside of that, probably Hearse, since this version has the persist element a lot more apparent. But normally, Hearse is not something you want here. And then the moon effects, Blood Moon is still shutting down Dwarven Mines. There is a little bit more red cards in this one, but I would think you still probably at least bring in one of the Blood Moons. But enough of this deck. Let's look at the fun deck here. Let's look at Jund Creativity as our kind of new deck that we haven't seen a lot of, and we'll see what we can bring in here.
Yeah, so Jund Creativity, the topic I was asking about earlier was like, you know that this is a 3-color build versus the more stock standard 5-color build that supports Leyline Binding.
Mhm.
One of the cards that we saw was Bitter Reunion, and we'll get the deck list up on the screen shortly for you to see what exactly is in the sideboard for the Jund list. But okay, perfect. Yeah, so let's see. There's an Emrakul. There's Hidetsugu Consumes All. 2 copies of Necromentia, Nature's Claim,
It's a
Fatal Push,
wild
Veil of
sideboard.
Summer. Yeah, it really is, right? Anything that you like from it?
Veil is probably something you want from the Jund side, just being able to, force through hand disruption, and just be a complete blowout when they have stuff, but you don't want to overdo it on that kind of stuff. So I'm not entirely sure what all you want to bring in here, but popular play patterns are, just kind of bolt the 1/1. And then when Twinless Twin just plays land 2, you can't really just jam Ren. So you might just play a bit of reunion, something weak. And then on turn 3, you go Ren with Veil backup. Something like that is kind of how you put Twinless Twin and other Murktide decks on the back foot. So I'd be looking to do that. Also bring in the Fatal Push on the draw to kind of quote unquote pass the Regavan test. I think those would be the things I'd be looking for right away.
Makes sense. Yeah, I also sometimes feel like whenever I'm playing against a deck that has Veil of Summer, as we dive into the first post board game of the match, it's like always like the threat of the card that is also pretty terrifying here.
Yeah,
So we'll see how that plays out.
absolutely.
Looking
And
at the
both
hands,
hand cams. Looking at the hands, we can see them both. That's good.
yeah, yeah.
All right. All
Spell
right.
Snare, Murktide Regent, Ledger Shredder, Mishra's Bauble, and a couple lands on one side, and then Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Thoughtseize on the other side. How do you feel
Yeah.
about both of these hands?
I like both of them. Both very just okay. I would say both were just okay, nothing special, but that red and 6 off the top made this hand pretty special where you can either take the spell snare and make sure your Ren resolves, or you can take the Ledger Shredder and stop that powerful play of Shredder into Bobble. That's tempting because of that, and just let your Ren get spell snared. I agree with that, and I think that was a really smart play.
All right, yeah, it's fascinating because I think I would have taken the spell snare there and been
Yeah.
horribly wrong because I don't know, I haven't played Ren and Six in a while. It's been banned in Legacy, and I like the brain chemicals, just planeswalkers. But
Yes, yes, absolutely. You mince and boo lover, you. Think if you could play both together in Legacy. Would that just be your dream?
I've had to go to Vintage to try it out. So that's yes, yeah, it's it's tough. It's tough out here. Uh,
Interesting.
but
Funny.
this is pretty big here. So Unlicensed Hearse is going to be the top deck for the turn here, and we notice Brennan 6 was not deployed at all last turn, knowing about the spell snare, no reason to give it value.
It's
So we'll
Fable
see.
time.
Yeah.
Here's the one nice thing, Anuraag, though, is with Fable, when you see an unlicensed Hearst on the other side, you give up the whole persist back Archon game plan. So drawing a persist there normally would be like, ah, dang, that's terrible. But with Fable's Chapter 2, that's just the first card that's going to go to the graveyard, and you're pretty okay with it. So while unlicensed Hearst does seem necessary, and I would agree with Max to bring it in, it's not that good against this deck when DeKing's version has such duality, you know?
All right. Well, Fiery Island going to come into play and immediately cycle. If you're on the other side of the table, what sort of signals does that telegraph for the king?
That your hand is bad. That your hand is very bad. You do not want to just give up your fourth land unless you really don't have anything going. And the king knows about Island, Murktide, Spell Snare, so can pretty much assume those other two are lands or more situational counter spells. So I'd be looking to smell blood, especially with this Ragavan token living, Ragavan at home, excuse me. I'd be jamming.
Okay. Yeah. And you know what they say, right? What's better than one Fable of the Mirror Breaker?
Tacos,
A cheese.
right?
Oh, dang. We're on the same.
Oh,
Okay. Very good. Awesome.
we both need lunch. We both need lunch, it
Yeah.
seems like. Yeah. I think there's catering being set up by Adrian. He's mailing us expensive food, is what I heard. So we'll see if
Well,
that's true.
I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it. Yeah, just confirmed some stakes on route. But second
All
Fable, the Mirror
right.
Breaker, gonna come into play. And honestly, it just looks like the king is in the driver's seat here as the reflection coming in soon. And that reflection with two of them in play, that's pretty good too.
Yeah, absolutely. And this deck can win that kind of fair game plan where you just go with two reflections at end step and you're able to just copy them with every one of your mana and then just make it 2/2 for each one. Not common, not super common. And on the other side of the battlefield, just the most sad sight ever. The old 3/3 Murktide. Just at that point, I mean, I think Twinless Twin had a big decision there. Be like, should I play this 3/3 Murktide or just shame scoop and save myself some face? I'm with the bold line of playing it, so gotta respect him.
It's fascinating too because if there was just even one instant or sorcery, not even there, but like a little later, the unlicensers could like power up the Murktide region, and this
Yeah.
is this is just tragic. Like nothing is going according to plan here.
And I mean, nothing is really going according to the King's plan. I mean, in air quotes here, because of course the King is dominating this game. But we've went through almost 20 cards, no creativity. You have the Veil set up to just completely end this game right now. If you found one, it's not there. So we're still playing Magic. And if Twinless Twin brought in any kind of EEs, I'm not sure if I remember seeing that in the list, to be honest. But then maybe we have a chance of getting back in.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, like, what needs to happen for Twinliston to actually draw out of this situation? What are the good draws?
Yeah, I'm checking right now. And yeah, there are 3 EEs. So EE is the start. Being able to blow up all these treasures, all these tokens is pretty good. It's just the problem here is, well, Twinless Twin's hand is terrible and cannot even trigger this shredder to be able to, cycle it away. So yeah,
Yeah.
really, really unfortunate draw so far.
And I guess the other downside here is that even though Engineered Explosive sounds really good, these reflection of Kiki Jikis will still be left in play, and you can always creativity targeting those to get some hasty archons or something.
Yeah, that's just putting out fire number one. Then you got a backup fire to deal with that is going to happen right here because this whole reflection plan, the way it works, you can't just like do it now at sorcery speed. You have to wait till your opponent's end step. Reflections copies the summoning sick reflection, puts in a copy the summoning sick reflection. Do that over and over with each mana, and then you have a 2/2 that will start into your turn since it doesn't get removed until the next end step.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that you can repeat this loop. It only costs 1 mana to repeat the loop. So this means that we could see upwards of, what is this, like 10, 5 plus 5? I could do it. Yeah, that's like 20 points of power threatening the game next turn.
Yeah, 24, but you almost nailed it because you
I
got
was
the
close.
original copies themselves.
Oh, true.
Yeah, yeah, and then I mean that's counting that the shamans and all that die as well. So I think it
There's a
has
reason
to
I don't play
be.
Storm.
There you go. Yeah, I think Expressive has to find EE, which then has to find a bolt. I think that's like the line.
Okay,
It's not there.
that's a scalding dart.
That's a Scalding Tarn. That's one of the worst draws I've seen. And, that sucks when you get this far. We have all this build up time from one day where Twinless Twin played excellent, got 8 wins. This was a 9-round tournament. Then you play one of these matches, and it's just, yeah, the King got lucky to get that Thoughtseize. Otherwise, that was going to be game one going to Twinless Twin. But you know what? That's why you put him in the deck, Anurag.
Yeah, and sometimes that is also just magic where you sometimes flood out a little bit or the draws don't line up, and you know in these moments it's always just like, all right, well I did what I could, I played as best as possible, so we're not going to think about like the bad luck. We're going to take agency over what we can do, and props to King for having a very punishing start. In modern and just in any format in general, you want to always play a deck that can really push the pedal to the metal, punish your opponent for stumbling. It's exactly what
Mhm.
we see here.
Yeah, powerful and proactive. Always something that I want to be doing in modern. The blue white control definitely works for some players. We see Raja Suleiman, one of the best blue white players I've ever seen, absolutely crush it every single time. But those kind of decks are not, necessarily what I would recommend to new players that are looking to do some damage here in modern Magic. I'd be looking for Murktide. I'd be looking for creativity decks. They're very good right now.
Yep, absolutely. So this is a demonstration of the quote unquote loop here. So reflection of Kikijiki going to target another instance of reflection of Kikijiki. That's going to make a hasty reflection of Kikijiki, which is going to repeat the process. For each mana that we can spend, we get another 2/2. And yep, the King 3603 going to take the first match here in the top 8 of our Mana Traders 10K.
Yeah, super impressive stuff. So the King's going to be moving on. Maybe we can take a quick look at that bracket. I know we don't have it filled out yet, but we'll look to see where the King is heading from here. And then we're going to jump into just more Magic here. I'm sure not everyone is done. Well, we look at that. So the King moving over to play the winner of those two. And we'll get a quick update here, see if anything else.
Okay,
Okay,
so
okay.
looks
Aerys
like
beat Casa, and that is Arias
Omnath.
with, I believe you're right. Yeah, 4-color Omnath advancing there. So maybe we can. That's the thing. Do we want to step into the double scam mirror, or do we want to go to NBDF playing another, but the other version? Oh, wait, no, Crashing Footfalls. Yeah, let's check out the Crashing Footfalls list versus
Four
Omnath as
color again, yeah.
well. Yeah, okay. So we'll try to jump into that one and check out some more Magic here, Anurag.
Oh, all
Oh,
right. Well,
well,
that tells us a lot.
I guess Mom was not even enough for Rhinos. Rhinos does not have too many come into play abilities, as it turns out. So Mom falls. Well, I guess Mom Part 2 advances to the other one. So, all right. I guess we're going to check out a little bit of a scam mirror match with Dom if they are still playing. Double scam mirror, Anurag. Gotta
That
love
one's
it.
gonna be really interesting. I'll be very honest. I
Yeah.
don't have too much clue like how it's gonna. It's that seems like a very attrition based battle,
Yeah.
and we're gonna see basically whose list is gonna be superior based on certain tech
Yeah.
choices because these are radically different lists. Maybe I'd say
Yeah.
like 65, 68 out of 75, and that's almost enough to be like a unique archetype in some places.
Oh, for sure. The one call that I have, the one thing that I think we are going to see, more than likely 85%, maybe even a little higher, probably 100% is Red Black Scam is going to win this match. That's my
Oh,
call. Yeah.
that's a bold claim here. We'll check in
You
later
know,
to see if you're actually right
I
about
don't
that.
like to
But
make these kind of bold claims, this early in the broadcast, but you know what? I'm feeling froggy today, and I'm just, I'm going to call it as I see it.
I love the confidence, Corey. I love it. We're going to see in play right now a copy of Ragavan and Fury that has been Undying Malice. So it's back as a 4/4 double striker. And this is terrifying. So it looks like another Fury is going to come into play here. And that is very cleanly going to handle the Seasoned Pyromancer and 2 elemental tokens on Dom's side. So, our featured player is not off to a very hot start here in the top 8. But if there's any player that can bring it back, it is Dom Harvey.
Yeah, I did send out a tweet, shouting out kind of the two big names of Dom and Twinless Twin. And yeah, so far it kind of looks like I am straight cursing them. Wow, hitting grief. So you can actually, I believe you can pitch that if you want, or you can just hard cast it. Wow, good
Yeah.
grief. Good grief.
That is Crazy. And then coming back from this board state, we can see in the hand here for Dom is Dothy Voidwalker, a Fatal Push, and 2 copies of
Wow.
Terminate.
Wow. 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 I mean, Dom basically still had this board under control if it wasn't for that grief. But that grief is a solid 2-for-1 here. Where now Dom, I think we should probably take the fatal push here because that's forcing Dom to top deck a land to be able to double spell here. Yeah, nice pickup. So now if we don't see a land, it's just basically game. I mean, you can go
Ooh.
to 1 and hit the Fury, and then what are you gonna do? You know? So wow, that grief off the top. We came in at the perfect time to just watch an absolute beating there. So
That's
yeah. Impressive stuff. So shout out to Miskin Bullock.
I like it.
Yeah. All right. All right. We'll go with that. I'm sorry if I butchered your names. I'm already not great at players' names. It's something I'm very much working on when it comes to like pro tours. But now if I just have to type in this, if I have to say this, that someone just typed into their keyboard, that ends up being a little bit of a problem. So we're gonna get the top 4 players all set up. So we're gonna take a very short break, but we, do not go anywhere, everyone, because these matches are gonna happen lightning speed here. We're going to set up our top 4 feature match. And remember, use ! Bash Bros in the chat if you want to sign up and be a part of this tournament next month. Next month is going to be March, believe it or not. And it is going to be standard with Ross Merriam and myself. And Brad Nelson will be the bounty this time, standard master. So if you want to join in, join this loan program and find yourself on the streets this Mana Traders for the next one. We also have a new exciting little keyword in the chat, ! Standings, and you'll be able to see the deck list here. We're going to be trying to up all this kind of stuff from Mana Traders coverage throughout the year to make it more accessible for you, the person that's watching, which is the most important person. So, all right, everyone, we're going to take ourselves a short 5-minute break, and then we're going to be right back with the top 4 Magic here on the Mana Trader series. Welcome back to coverage here of the Mana Trader series, top 8 edition. Well, now top 4 edition. That was kind of a lightning fast one there, Anuraag. Loved it.
Yeah, we got to watch The King on Indomitable Creativity take down Twinless Twin, one of the best Murktide players probably in the whole damn world. And then on the other
Absolutely.
side, yeah, and then we saw the Rakdos Scam Mirror, just brief moments of it as Fury came down to just completely lock up the game here. So we've got Miskin in the top 4 as well. Actually, 4 unique archetypes, which I'm looking forward to seeing all of.
Yeah, we definitely saw some scamming going on there. So let's take a peek at our bracket here and see where we are at with the rest of our day here. Down to 4 players here. We're going to be focusing on our bottom match here. NBDF up against The King 3603. That is going to be Rhinos up against the creativity list. So I think that one, if anything, will be kind of the faster one. So we'll be able to peek in on our other semifinals list. But yeah, gonna be really, really cool stuff. So we've already really seen the creativity list, but let's take a peek, a closer look on NBDF's Rhino list here.
Yeah, and this list is pretty awesome. We took a look at it a little bit before, but just as a reminder, this is a deck based off Shardless Agent, Violent Outburst. We cascade into Crashing Footfalls, and then we have a lot of tools, removal tools, counter spells that we don't have to cascade into. Of note in the sideboard, is there anything that we're looking at that might be important for the Footfalls matchup, Corey? Sorry, for the creativity matchup.
For the creativity matchup, yeah, I would say maybe Blood Moons as well. But outside of that, wow, I'm not seeing very good cards for creativity. Maybe I'm a little wrong on this, and maybe you bring in Force of Vigors or something. But yeah, it doesn't seem like you want to add anything that's not already there. You probably want to get those Furies out of there. So that can be a problem. But the one thing that's going to be very important in this matchup is the card that's already in the main deck, and that's for Force of Negation. Being
Okay.
able to pressure, and especially if our team or Rhinos player can be on the play, get Rhinos out, and then have Force of Negation backup, that's really exactly what you need.
Yeah, I also want to give a shout out to Brazen Borrower as a pretty good answer to Archon of Cruelty. I mean, of course, there are a number of things that could go wrong, but in general, if you can get the pressure in play like you're mentioning, and then you have a Brazen Borrower to maybe bounce the Archon, getting the Archon back into play is certainly a little bit trickier than normal. If we take a look at the creativity list, though, one thing to highlight though that this is the Jund variation. So Archon not necessarily designed to be only put into play by creativity from the deck. But there is a little bit of a reanimation package here with persist and then discard outlets like Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
Yep, absolutely. So this is the other list we're looking at here. As far as sideboard cards for this one, looking at dealing with the old rhinos on the other side. If you're on the play, Necromentia, just name crashing footfalls, that seems pretty good, I must say. Hitagatsu consumes all actually seems pretty strong as well, as that kills the rhinos. And that's probably it. These two decks don't necessarily feel like they directly have each other in mind. So yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting match.
Yeah, and I think the players are ready to start, so we're going to dive in when
Okay.
they're beginning play here. But yeah, I think that's a really good point, Corey, is that like these are basically two ships. Kind of like game one I kind of expect to see is just like a little bit of solitaire here. We do have a couple reactive elements from both sides, but nothing too crazy. It's not going to be like what we saw earlier where the Is It Murktide deck is looking to get full lockdown. It's really going to be like, all right, here's my really proactive plan, and I've got a couple tools left and right to maybe bounce a Rhino here, or an Archon here, or like something like that. Nothing very very hard like we'll see in other decks.
Yep, totally agree. So while we got a little time, let's take a look at our other top four side of the bracket
And that one's
and check
going to
out some of
be
our other decks here.
yep.
All right, so this is our scam deck that made it through Dom. And yeah, tell me about this list. I mean, we saw it in action there at the very end, but didn't really see it, fully in action through the whole match.
Yeah, so this is your typical Raptos Scam archetype. You've got your elementals like Fury and Grief. You combine them with Undying effects. They come back on as fast as turn one, and they just go. They cause a lot of mayhem. You can discard your opponent's removal spells or other key spells, and you try to leverage the scam in order to create a board state that your opponent just can't come back from. Now, in this matchup, we're playing against four-color Omnath, so it's going to be a little bit tricky because the Omnath deck is very well known for having a lot of removal spells. You can see there on the screen
Yeah.
4 Solitudes, 4 Leyline Bindings, and then also the 3 Prismatic Endings. So, the scam element may not necessarily be the best foot moving forward. Yesterday, while we were watching some scam decks, we could see, renowned players not even really trying to go for the scam. They just wanted to play like a red-black mid-range value deck. And even on that aspect, I feel like this list right here in front of us we'll have them pretty covered with, Risen Reef generating a lot of cards, and then also Teferi and Ren 6 also generating cards. It's going to be tricky.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I got to think that the four color matchup is favored. Otherwise, I don't know what this deck is supposed to be like super beating. I think it would be Murktide and Scam would be good, but it sounds like our match is made. So let's head on in to the first semifinal match.
All right, and once again, the king on the play here with a pretty great hand. I see Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Collective Brutality, and Thoughtseize, a pretty strong curve. On the other side, it looks like we have Shardless Agent, Brazen Borrower, and then Requisite Lands to cast. And a key note, Gemstone Caverns in the opening as well.
Yep, absolutely. So it does look like maybe this is already a mold to 6. Not exactly sure how many mulligans we have. But yeah, being on the draw with Gemstone Cavern, you can just kind of steal the playback essentially, but it's not very good against a hand that's full of season collector brutalities.
Yeah, that is going to be pretty crazy here. And this is one of the reasons why I think this Rakdos deck is so, fascinating is because you do have these like explosive turn one plays, but then you can always fall back on, your standard quote unquote Jund grind, just trading effectively 1 for 1, and then you power out some sort of oh, sorry, this is creativity. I apologize. But you still have access to that standard like mid-range battle where you're just playing, honest threats, and trying to generate mize value where you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does look like we had one card maybe missing or something there because it shows 3 cards in hand and violent outburst drawn. Yeah, so something's not quite right there. There's just 1 card off on our hand viewer. So could be anything. Could even be a boat. Oh, it's going to be an ice. I bet that. I'll call that. Yeah, fire ice maybe not working so well with our hand viewer. A little tricky there, but
This is a very clutch fire ice, though, because it's going to turn off collective brutality, disrupt the curve a little bit, and make the perfect window available for an end step or upkeep or at any point violent outburst to get some rhinos and play, get the game cooking.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So being able to just put 2/4/4s into play and then have force backup. This is exactly what we were kind of thinking, in the pre-match here, is if you can land this exact configuration, the King's just on the back foot, and it's gonna take a lot of time because these creativity decks, whether you're Jund, whether you're four colors, whether you're all the colors with ley lines binding, the mana base is pretty painful.
It is pretty painful, and your spells, just to reliably do everything, sometimes you just have to put more lands into play, and you need more time. And you're going to see right now what's not being given time, because these 4/4 trampling rhinos are just they're in. They're not giving any mercy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna see kind of a fresh hand now from DeKing with Fable the Mirror Breaker Chapter 3. And wow, that put some good ones in hand with Terminate, Fatal Push, Collector Brutality, and Lightning Bolt that could team up to destroy something. All of a sudden with a draw like that, DeKing's looking pretty good here.
Oh yeah, and then Dwarven Mine now to make a 1/1. Pair that with a Lightning Bolt to get rid of a Rhino. You have ample removal afterwards. And check this out: Collective Brutality, uh, also going to take care of something like this Force of Negation in the hand for NBDF.
Yeah, probably just the mode of duress, essentially. So forcing the force of negation. And now you're able to just terminate a Rhino, Fatal Push a Rhino, and be like, yeah, good luck. And now it's just going to be on NBDF to just draw Shardless Agent or Violent Outburst like right now.
All right, moment of truth. What do we have? Scalding Tarn. That's not good enough. And we may just end up seeing a very quick stabilization here for DeKing, uh, putting the Fable of the Mirror Breaker up to Chapter 3, Reflection of Kiki-Jiki now in play. Things are going pretty well. The Lightning Bolt obviously doesn't pair too well against a freshly top deck Cascade spell, but right now the board state is stable, and this is where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And still two cards in NBDF's hand. So there's one mystery one, where if this is Violent Outburst or something, then it will still be troublesome, but it's got to be something good. Another land off the top is not what the doctor ordered. And now just the King is just going to play this fair game plan, just attack, for 5 over and over and be able to close this game out in a couple turns. But that is the power of these Teamer Rhino decks. You can just draw one of the 8 namesake cards, and all of a sudden the board states just get flipped. Dead
Okay.
gone. Okay, it's all these split cards that are messing with the hand cam. So maybe we can we can put a note for that for future references. Um, that probably just causes some problems. That would make sense. That's half their deck though. So
Yeah. Game on a bit of a lullaby here. Goblin, Shaman, and the Dwarf token coming into play. Of note, we didn't play the Wooded Foothills last turn. Maybe there's a reason for that, but that could have theoretically put another token into play, accelerated the clock or something like that. Maybe
yeah,
playing around something there.
definitely could. Usually playing to draw Fable, you like to keep 2 cards in hand so that you can just always have 2 great cards to discard. So whenever you can do that in these decks, just being able to start with 3 cards through a turn is just so impressive.
All right, top deck, Ketria Triumph, going to cycle into a Brazen Borrower. And that's not a Cascade spell, but, Brazen Borrower can get rid of the Goblin Shaman token, for example, or act as a quote-unquote counter spell if the king gets a little sloppy with... okay, and there it is, with Indomitable Creativity. And there it is, Bitter Reunion, to
Great
sort of filter
draw.
out.
Great draw to discard Mountain there. What did we find? Archon, almost castable. 3, 4, 5, 6. Getting close. You do have black mana in this, so the card is just always castable. But Ren to be able to get a couple lands, not too crazy to be casting that Archon 5, 6, 7. Yeah, you can cast Archon next turn with Bitter Reunion haste if I'm doing my math right.
That's
Because
pretty
you have
powerful.
5, 6, 7. Yeah, the 2 treasures make 8 and 9. So yeah, next turn we're done here. Almost no matter what. I can't really think what beats Archon besides like a Dead Gone to bounce or something? There is a Brazen Bar to bounce as well. So that will keep him alive, but yeah, I mean, I guess
That's
that
not
had to
a
be one of the main draws.
Yeah, there's no backup plan, if you will. I mean, once the Archon, because at this point we just hard cast the Archons. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Next turn we put land number 7 into play, and then you Brazen Borrower, and then the next turn we put land number 8 into play, and we're just recasting it. So this is honestly, it's really cool that this deck has this like really grindy like plan D, F, Z. I don't know game, yeah, available to
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Yeah, it's like the Fable the Mirror Breaker. The reflection side is kind of that like plan B next to just creativity. And then all of a sudden, if you draw too many Archons, plan A for that is usually discard them to persist. But you know what? I agree with you. You know, plan D is just hard casting this card.
And looks like we're going to get rid of the loose gemstone caverns. Renin Tick's going to tick up, get wooded foothills here. Put that into play. Fetch, maybe activate the bitter reunion, swing for lethal.
Yeah, not even going for it. Really interesting. Okay, decides to go for it here. I mean, it's not going to work. So it would have been kind of a crazy soul read, but now you do get just 3 dwarfs in there. But on the flip side, we're going to see Petty Theft on Archon, and then you can actually cast Brazen Borrower and attack. So the King's at a virtual 4 here.
Now, of note, we saw Dead, Gone, and Fire Ice. Are there any other ways to perhaps deal direct damage just to the face out of this deck?
Yeah, no direct damage out of the face. So it really, I guess, would have to be if we think of a Rhino top deck. It's tough
It really is, yeah. And I
because
feel like even a Rhino top deck kind of loose because we have the requisite black mana in the form of Blood Crypt and Zatora's Proving Ground. So, you
yeah.
know, just one turn too short, if you will.
Yeah, you just need a mountain or something left in your deck, one more Dwarven Mine, which I'm pretty sure we at least have a Dwarven Mine, and you just get to cast Archon again. That being said, you can't give it haste this time. It's just going to. Oh, I guess yeah, you just get to attack for lethal. That's also a pretty good plan.
Yeah, yeah. Good
And have
enough.
bolt
Yep.
for lethal. Yeah, there we
For 3
go.
mana and right
And
click
gets it.
concede.
All right, impressive stuff.
All right, so diving into the deck list here, we're going to take a look at the Rhinos deck list. Anything in the sideboard that is interesting for you? We may have briefly mentioned a couple cards, but hit me with them again. What's good here?
Definitely Blood Moon. I think you just mainly in these Rhino decks, it's usually a situation of what's bad more than what's good. I mean, of course, there's of course some situations where you for sure want cards. Subtlety against Amulet, you know, Force of Vigor against Breach decks, stuff like that where you're automatically bringing stuff in. But I would think Fury is a card I would very much want to get out of my deck. Probably Subtlety as well. And I'd want to be bringing in Endurances for the Persist plan and Blood Moons for the Dwarf plan, and maybe Dispute.
Okay.
Dispute when you're on the play is actually not bad, even though it is not a blue deck in any way, shape, or form. So it's still kind of awkward as just a 3 mana lake, but we might see it. I'm not truly sure. It'll be interesting to see how these players decide to do it.
All right, and on the other side, actually, well, looks like the game is starting here, so we're going to dive into the first post-board game of our top 4 here. But on the other side, I'll be curious to check, see if we get into a game 3, what the available tools are here for the King on Jund creativity. Opening hands are looking pretty good. I see Indomitable creativity, Thoughtseize, Veil, Renin 6 in the King's hand, and on the other side, Brazen Borrower, Forest, and likely a dual card. That's going to get mulligan immediately, though. So new
Yeah.
stuff here. And
What kind of dual card? We get to play that guessing game. You know what? That adds to some fun. But the thing that is confusing to me is isn't Brazen Bar kind of a dual card as well? But I guess technically, since it's an adventure card, maybe it's templated a little differently. I digress.
yeah, and this is really rough. Is this okay? It's a mulligan down to 5. One card
Yeah.
that we don't know yet. Wooded Foothills going to fetch for a breeding pool, suspend crashing footfalls, and we
Well, we're
have
gonna see it right away, Anuraag, because it's gonna get Thoughtseize. I bet it's a Fire Ice with searching for a blue land as well, trying to set up that tap a land and then violent outburst type of plan. But Yeah, I don't think there's a way you're not going to Thoughtseize here turn one.
Yeah, very, very perceptive. And honestly, Corey, is there anything you can't do? I mean, being able to read the invisible, that's a superpower I would love to. Oh, wow. Wait a minute.
Well,
Did,
apparently I couldn't even read the visible here because they didn't even go for the Thoughtseize, which is crazy to me. I guess you just really want to. I don't know. I don't agree with this because if it is Fire and Ice, now you get to tap this land down too. Unless you really just need the Proving Grounds as like, I have to have this as a land to start, which I
well,
could see.
how about a
But
cryptic command?
yeah, Cryptic Command on the Veil here did work out quite well. Now, granted, you'd kind of be able to do that anyways if you just get Overgrown Tomb, but maybe we just don't have that in the deck since this is a Dwarven Mine deck. That would make sense too. So
Yeah.
yeah, just scratch whatever I've just said at the beginning of this game from the record, and we'll start over. Okay, so here we are getting into the second game here of the semifinals, and
Who's gonna win though? Because it looks like we just hit our third land. NBDF now has access to endurance that the King does know about, but I mean, it's just that's it. Like this mulligan down to 5 was really brutal. One endurance was cool, but on the other side, there's two creativities, a Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Ren and 6 as well. I feel like this one's basically wrapped up.
well, there is a Rhino suspended, so we do have that. Let's check out
Okay.
what that timer is, Adrian, and we'll see what it's down to. Yeah, so going down to 1, so there is going to be Rhinos next turn, but I agree with you. This is looking quite bad, especially with another crashing footfall off the top. I did not think this match was going to look kind of so lopsided, but I guess when you have hand disruption and pressure like this Jund creativity deck does, kind of bad news bears if you have to mulligan a lot as a Rhino player.
And that is kind of interesting too, right? Because the Rhinos deck is pretty. I mean, I don't say this in a bad way, but it just is what it is. It is somewhat of a linear deck where you really need to have a hand that can get access to, crashing footfalls as fast as possible. So you're not
Yeah.
allowed to just keep any sort of, what is it called? Synergy based like hand, like, you might see in other decks. And
Yeah.
that means in the long resource based battle, you know, you can actually fall behind a lot.
This was awesome here. This was a King knowing about this endurance and be like, he's just saying, I dare you to. And it's not like King has the option to just fatal push this, but why do that when instead you can just play Beseiju and Indomitable Creativity your treasure and get an Archon here? Not only stripping your opponent of the last card in hand, which it can't be Force of Negation. I mean, it could be, but you can't pitch for anything. And you get to deal with the endurance for the low cost of a shaman token. So I think that was really smart play by King, and it was forced by NBDF, so not like there was any real decision. But if NBDF doesn't play endurance, does the King go for it? Maybe not.
Yeah. And that's going to be a quick concession here. The King 3603 now on to the finals of our modern 10K here, our monthly
Easy.
mana traders. Yeah, it looked fantastically easy. I mean, like first taking a Twinless Twin down 2-0 in the span of like 10, 15 minutes. And now here running it back. I mean, I'm going to say like at
That
this
was like
stage, like,
5 minutes.
yeah,
Like
yeah. like I, I'm going to say right now, I think the King is just going to win this whole event.
you think so?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Well, we
think
are
so.
going to
Yeah, yeah,
check
yeah.
out. We are going to check out the other match to see who King is going to be playing against. But first of all, King just locked up a spot in that end of the year tournament by making it to the finals already. So huge congratulations. We'll be seeing King a lot more here in the following tournaments in that end of the year tournament, which it's just a really awesome one to play. The tournament structure is a lot different. Dom won it the last time. You got to play 3 formats, so you'd like this. You got to play some Legacy, you got to play Modern,
Hey,
you got to play Pioneer. Is what we did last time. Maybe we'll mix it up, but you got to be a master of Magic Online. That's all it comes down to. You can't just be an individual deck all-star. You got to know it all. So I think that tournament is really fun, and it's always been really fun to watch.
all
All
right.
right.
Looks like we're gonna go into our second match here in the top four, which is featuring uh Omnath, the 4-color, 5-color Omnath against uh, Rakdos Scam, and it looks like you can see on the screen Blood Moon just doing great Blood Moon things here. Torok, Dread Cantor also on the stack, which means we're definitely going into post board game now. But we'll take a look at deck lists too if those are available. Or never mind, just starting in, and we're
Yeah.
in game
So,
3.
oh, game 3. Okay. So we get the conclusion here. Now, remember, everyone, we're going to be getting serious here because the winner of this does not only get a chance to play for the large amount of money, first place grand prize of $3,000, second is $2,000, and third and fourth is 1,000. So these players are playing one game of Magic for $1,000, no big deal, and they are going to be playing for that end of year tournament, which has a ton of equity connected to it. So, a solid $1,500 game of Magic here. So let's check it out.
All right, turn one, Sacred Foundry is the play here from our Fort Collar player. We'll see if there's an explosive start that we've alluded to many times before, featuring any of the elementals and a Feigned Death. And speaking of, there is a Fury, there is a Ragavan, there's a Feigned Death, and a Grief.
Wow.
It's happening.
Scam is happening, and I was getting some mixed reviews in chat. Like, some players were saying this is kind of just like a buy for Rakdos, and I can kind of see it. It is a little faster. They have some of these scan draws that if your opponent's just trying to prismatic ending these 4 drops, that's not going to happen. They're trying to wait to get Risen Reef, like, that's not really happening. Yeah, Leyline's Binding is awesome, but we see that card put to the graveyard, and wow, this match might be really, really bad, where I thought maybe elementals would be, kind of favored, or maybe not, at least in a huge detrimental matchup.
Yeah, and that this is interesting, right? I think this is all about like tempo, tempo, tempo. When you have these sort of hyper aggressive starts, we're going to see abundant growth come into play targeting the Sacred Foundry, but we need an answer for Grief ASAP so that it doesn't just completely take over the game. You could see Fury and Undying Malice. It would be a sick combination, but instead, Ragavan is a very solid play here. Also, getting the token to cast Thoughtseize later on.
Yeah.
This is sweet.
Yeah, this seems like an absolute beating so far. And there is Leyline's Binding, but it does cost 3. Abundant Growth doesn't have that ability that we see in Pioneer with Nylea's Presence to change it to all types. Um yeah, so you just it costs normally 3, and you get to take another Leyline's Binding. And what are you gonna do to Ragavan here? I mean, this is just a beating so far.
Well, deck Teferi is fantastic here for Aerys. Yeah, that's
That
going to be
was
able to
very
bounce.
good.
Yeah, that's going to bounce the Grief and save a couple life points. We'll see what the draw is here off of Teferi. It's another copy of Abundant Growth. So maybe stabilizing
Ooh, big
is
draw
what I
again. Let's
is what I
scam
would
them
say.
again, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, we can just scam them again and play Ragavan if need be. I mean, first you start with the scam, I guess, right? And then
Well,
you take those 2 cards, and then since you don't see anything else that can deal with Ragavan, you might as well, I guess.
this is a little bit tricky because the Teferi is going to stop the instant speed Undying effect to go tag onto the Grief. So we're going to have to navigate maybe whether we attack the Teferi this turn with the Ragavan or go straight for the life total, try to flip a card. Uh, Actually, very surprising. Teferi may have been the one draw that could have got our Omnath control player out of
Yeah,
trouble
that
here.
was that was an insane draw. And
Yeah.
wow, just goes for the Fury instead? That seems wild to me.
Okay, this is actually kind of insane because now it looks like Miskin is saying, "Hey, I'm going to take care of your Teferi, and I'm just going to buy my 4/4 Fury double striker, and it's going to kill you in basically like what 2 turns."
Yeah, I suppose it's a 2-turn clock instead of a 3-turn clock. That is a decent plan, and I guess you can do some griefing later, but it is risky. I mean, now you're all in. Now if another Leyline's Binding comes off the top, I mean, I don't know. That one seemed like an interesting play that could have went either way. And wow, even Risen Reef here off the top is a pretty solid draw. And to be fair, if you go for the grief line, your opponent that next turn was going to draw that land, have nothing to do, play it, tap, say go. That's what would have happened. And then you have a 4-3 grief in play, a 2-1 Ragavan. Your opponent's at 6. That's still a 2-turn clock. And then you can just either attack down to Fairy or you go face. And I think you're in a better position here, even though you're still in a good position.
All right, well, Fury going to come into the red zone here, put Aerys down to 4, taking the damage, saying, "Hey, I need this Risen Reef to come back into the game here." We're going to see a
Yep.
follow-up Grief, and oh, this is not looking good for our 4-color player.
Well, I mean, there's some haymaker draws here. Omnath, Solitude. If there's any Furies, I mean, Aerys has great draws in the deck. They just have to find it right now.
All right, it's going to come down to one top deck here. What do we have here? Stomping Ground, an Ephemerate in
Ooh,
hand.
okay, redraw.
All right.
Redraw.
Omnath would still do it.
Solitude would still be good enough. You'd go down to 1 and you'd be able to do something.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my god.
Nice. All right. So we have a game here. We're still playing. I mean, it's not done just yet. Both sides will have to.
As long as there's a basic planes in the deck, there has to be basic planes.
Yeah, and I think we've seen the deck list. We can guarantee that there is.
Yeah, I could look over to the deck list, but you know what? I like the sweat as well. Okay, Castle.
I'm gonna say it.
Don't call it a comeback.
Don't call it a comeback. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm saying if this game ends, I think we're going to be looking back on that play if we would have double griefed and Regavand or going for this. You know, not necessarily that it would have been a for sure win going for the other line, but it was definitely a very enticing line to say the least.
For sure. And now we're going to see Solitude come into play. A lot of things are going to happen. 2 triggers on the stack here. Solitude most likely going to exile the grief.
Interesting. So hits the grief. That made a choice where, you know, Aerys could have dealt with both creatures straight away and left the scam gamer with absolutely nothing, just the 3 lands, but now has oh yeah, you have the ephemerate, of course. Oh yeah.
There we go. Okay.
This is way better. Wow. What a comeback here, being able to Solitude Fury as well.
That is incredible. So now has Boseiju in hand, has a developed mana base, and then the Rakdos Scam player has basically nothing. 3 lands in play even, so can't even cast top deck spells.
I think we might be entering garbage time already when we thought this was going to be a blowout. But now Gusher Hands himself, Omnath, coming down to pick up 4 life with Teferi to be able to do all the nonsense here in the follow-up turn. And you got to think, Aerys is our next player to be heading to the top 8 to be playing against Gen Creativity.
Yeah, keeping in mind, this is game 3, so at this point, you're going to have some sort of miracle draw. Thoughtseize, not quite it.
Yeah, now Solitude's lifelink starts to get out of hand, so even if Aerys is blanking in air quotes, you're still drawing draw 4 cards. And hey, how about an ephemerate? Is that one good?
I'm a fan. Yeah. Just ephemerate my Solitude, target the Omnath on the way back, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Great play, buddy. Great play. I think I'd ephemerate now, though, to be fair, to play around Terminate, but I guess ephemerate itself does play around it. And if you just don't cast that spell, you're just going to win. But yeah, I would cast it now. Get your 2 cards out of the deal.
Yep.
And
wow, that's so crazy.
incredible.
Literally just goes all the way down to 1 life, says, all right, it's do or die here, comes back, rips the perfect card after, you know, being given this opportunity to, you know, for the opponent to make a mistake, says, all right, you gave me a second chance and I'm not going to waste it here. Omnath, Solitude in play, Leyline Binding also just to cover our bases. Very, very, very good showing.
I really would have. I'd like to know what you think, Chad. Should we have done the grief double up plan? I really think it would have looked out a lot better. You know, you still would have had that 6 damage. You still would have had that 2-turn clock. And Teferi wasn't a problem. So might be the point where we can look back on it. But impressive stuff from Aerys here to be joining it. And Torok, an excellent card in this matchup. You know, something that when this deck was called Money Pile, and it truly was a different deck then. These Turok cards were the answer, you know, but not going to be enough to come back here. We're in garbage time. It's going to be rough.
So I'm thinking about it a little bit more now, Corey, and looking back at that situation, I guess, so with the Teferi in play, you wouldn't actually be able to Undying Malice the grief, right?
Oh, yeah, you're so right, of course. With Teferi in play. Wow. Okay, well, I screwed up this whole match then.
Well,
you are so right.
I don't actually think you did, though, because there was a choice there, right? Fury pitching the Ragavan, and we still had a couple, like, I think we had Undying Malice, Grief, and a black card.
Yeah.
So we could have flickered the Grief instead of the Fury after killing the Teferi.
But I still think that is better, actually, because you get to keep around you have to get rid of your entire hand where you get to hold on to some material. So yeah, Teferi stopping that, I think, is totally the correct play by our Rakdos scam player. So nope, I take that back. That's my mistake. I do think it is close, but the fact that you're giving away a Fury if you don't Malice, yeah, I think that is a lot better.
Yeah, and I know Twitch chat probably will be
Oh
like, ah,
yeah,
pitchforks out and everything like that. So we want to make sure we do
yeah.
see the line, and I think I also agree with just the way it played out and things like that. But yeah, Aerys gonna take it down. Gonna see them in the finals here. They're paired up against Indomitable Creativity, and if I've seen anything, I think the King is gonna be, like I said already. I think they're gonna win this one. The way they've been playing, the way they've been drawing, but that matchup is certainly gonna be tricky.
Yeah, it's going to be super tricky, but hey, congrats to Aerys, congrats to the King, both making it into the finals. Absolutely no congrats to me for missing that line as well. So, Twitch chat, let me have it. I deserve that one. That was not my best there. So, in my defense, I have a cold, so I had to recover with NyQuil, so we'll say I'm still in the fog. Anurag, you think I can get away with that, or you think your
It took
pitchforks
me
are
a
still
while too,
sharpened?
so don't worry. It's not on you. It's we're in this one together. So,
Nice.
anyways,
Nice. All
so
right, so we are gonna take ourselves just a short break. We're just take ourselves a 4-minute break as we get these players ready to go, and we'll be right back here for the finals. We don't want to hold off these players too much, and we'll get them going. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Mana Traders coverage here. My name is Corey Baumeister. That's Anuraag Das. We're going to be bringing you coverage here of the finals. And so far, I mean, Anuraag, I was telling you earlier, if you blink, you miss these top 8 matches. We don't stop the action. They just go, and it has been pretty exciting so far.
yeah, I think the Kings matches who we're seeing in the finals now on Indomitable Creativity,
Yep.
probably less than 20-minute total gameplay time, which is absurd. Like that is fast. That is a beating, and the matches that we saw, that they were not close at all.
At all. Absolutely at all. And I mean, there was one top deck in there that, where the King stole a game. But outside of that, it was just the King's deck was just firing on higher cylinders. It just looked really good. That Jund Creativity deck is spicy. I think it looks really awesome. So on the other side, Aerys, we haven't seen a ton of. So let's pull up the bracket as we talk about this. We haven't seen a ton of them in the top 8 besides, this domination that we just saw. But cleared the way, beat Casa, a phenomenal Magic Online grinder, and really only lost one game as well. So both these players have been kind of dominating so far, which is pretty awesome. So we're going to take a look at one of the deck lists here as we get these players ready to go. We're going to be bringing you the top 8 cover or of the finals coverage, excuse me. And Jund Creativity, tell me more about it, Anurag.
Yeah, so we've seen this a couple times now already. Indomitable Creativity, the namesake of the deck, tries to put an Archon of Cruelty into play as fast as turn 4, maybe sooner. I don't know if that's actually completely. Oh, it is possible, yes, because we have a graveyard package in Bitter Reunion and Persist and a couple other tools like that. And yeah, it's ridiculously strong. That's what I've noticed so far. It's going to be kind of interesting because in this matchup specifically, we can't rely on Archon of Cruelty as much as we normally would, due to the fact that on the other side of the table, our opponent's deck has so much removal in the form of Leyline Binding and Solitude. And then I guess, if we can take a look at the 4-color deck as well, just to understand what's going on,
Yeah,
there's one
Anurag, I
card.
wanna I wanna stop you there before you bring that up. But yeah, very good point you're bringing up. Like the resolving of your combo. I think this 4-color deck can just be like, yeah, no problem. I'll discard a card. Of course, it kind of sucks, but then I'll just deal with it. I mean, I think we're gonna be looking for more like I need the creativity for 2. I need the creativity for 3, something like that.
Yeah, play a little bit of a slower game, right? So maybe these blistering fast matches that we've seen so far, not going to see them moving into the finals here.
Yeah, absolutely. As we like to call it, mom mid range here definitely slows things down alongside Teferi. So let's jump into this match. I cannot wait for the finals of the Mana Trader series here in February.
All right, once again, the King on the play here, and we have I don't know, some key cards in the matchup that we want to see in opening hands. Corey, can you outline a few?
For the King,
Yeah.
yeah, I think for the King, you really want to see that Thoughtseize into Ren and just have that available. Outside of that, Bitter Reunion into that very quick, persisted out the Archon. I think that's what you want to be looking for, but even just Ren to start, very good. Controls that Risen Reef draw, which is these elemental decks. Risen Reef is definitely the scariest card.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to see here, speaking of Risen Reef in the hand here for Aerys, and then Teferi, Time Raveler, and a copy of Ephemerate as well. So this is a pretty slow hand from the control side, but most hands are. Red and 6 going to come into play now.
Yeah, Teferi being a decent draw there, at least being able to protect. And now I learned of this static. I think this is a new static ability they added to the card where you cannot play stuff during your opponent's, turn or at instant speed. Being able to play Teferi and then go Risen Reef. So then if Ren negatives on the Risen Reef, you can ephemerate without any kind of lightning bolt or anything to be interacting with. So that's kind of what it looks like we're setting up. But I agree with you. That's pretty slow.
Yeah, and Bitter Reunion going to find a couple of Fable of the Mirror Breakers. Land number 3 comes into play here for the King Teferi on, Red and 6 on 5, excuse me. At Red and 6 actually by itself, kind of a scary threat. I mean, if it gets to ultimate, we haven't seen that yet, but in this matchup that is slow and easygoing, that is something real to be concerned about.
Yeah, it definitely is. Otherwise, it's not amazing. I mean, you're just like casting persists, a bunch of lightning bolts to the face. That's pretty good. Some extra thought seizes, pretty much thought seize at any point. That is also cool. Otherwise, the emblem is not amazing, but totally agree with you. In this matchup, it's especially awesome.
All right, Teferi now in play, ticking up to 5 loyalty. Going to unlock that turn 4 play you were talking about. Sweet, sweet Risen Reef with ephemerate value.
All right. And now this was supposed to be the turn for that creativity to be able to go Dwarven Mine creativity right now, but doesn't have it and just kind of has to play one of these fair turns of Fable the Mirror Breaker. And then you have the decision of crack Reunion and force that attack right now, which I actually really love since you can pair it with Dwarven Mine. Oh, this is sick because then you can attack Teferi down to 2 if that is chosen to do. And then you at least don't get the pump. Yeah, love it. Oh, and then you can lightning bolt it. Yeah, you can just straight deal with Teferi. This is pretty spicy.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a pretty creative DIY way to take down 5 loyalty on a planeswalker, and looking really strong here for the king.
Yeah, I'm guessing the king's not going to bolt it. Otherwise, well, all right. I can finally point out one for sure mistake where I don't see any way that I can screw it up. That dwarf should have went to the face because Teferi ended at -1 loyalty. I'm sure there's going to be something in chat that I missed for this, but as far as I can see, probably missed a point of damage there.
Well, here we go. Risen Reef now finally going to come into play here. And talk to me about how we're going to play with this ephemerate. Do we just instantly fire it off? Do we wait for the Ren and 6 to activate? What's the play?
I think I wait for the Renin 6. Otherwise, you're just going to lose Renin 6. And you're kind of so far behind here that I think you have to go for the really high upside of your opponent not having another play. But with this Thoughtseize, with Bolt in hand, all this good stuff going on, the King's going to have the information and not fall for any of these really big blowout plays.
Yeah, that was a pretty violent top deck there. I mean, Lightning Bolt did take care of Teferi. Kind of left them open here for the Risen Reef to be ephemerated, but now here, another Lightning Bolt just immediately ripped off the top here, going to take care of Risen Reef, and leaving Aerys with not too much left over. A couple lands and the single Risen Reef.
Yeah, don't count out Aerys though, as far as what we've been seeing as far as the last game, because well, we counted them out before that, and this was kind of a beating.
Yeah, Renin 6 on 7, second Fable of the Mirror Breaker now entering play. The hand is Mountain, Tarn, Mire, and Persist. But we can fix that a little bit with the second chapter of the freshly played Fable.
Okay, so there is Risen Reef. And a reminder to anyone who is, really just watches the gameplay and stuff after this, we are going to be having a winner's interview afterwards to talk to one of these players. One thing that we, don't get to do as much when it's an online tournament. So make sure to stick around as we chat with one of these winners.
All right, well, down a game in the finals, 4-color Omnath back against the wall here. It's do or die. Any sideboard cards you're looking forward to out of here?
I don't know. I mean, at this point, playing against the King, who's 5-0 in games so far, you just got to start doing some crazy stuff, just bring in some cards you don't expect, because whatever the King has been, doing, he's been prepared for just about everything. So outside of that, cards that we for sure want, I would say, are Ovar. Ovar all form is excellent. That is the only thing that that card is for is this matchup. The one right below Kozilek. For anybody is wondering, what that card really does is it says whenever you're forced to discard it, which Archon would make you forced to do, it comes in as a copy of either any creature or the creature that made you discard. Doesn't matter. It's always copying Archon, and then they have to sacrifice the Archon they just put into play back and discard a card. So it's kind of a Spider-Man meme, I would say, them pointing at each other, but it ends up working out for the 4-color mid-range deck by quite a lot. Also, Hollowed Moonlight being another card that is just a 2-mana cryptic command on all these creativities. So Arias does have the tools for this
Yeah.
matchup. Those are both great tools in this matchup.
Speaking of tools, one interesting tool that we're seeing here is Magus of the Moon in the opener alongside double abundant growth. How do you feel about that one?
Well, I feel pretty hilarious about it since the opponent's hand just has 2 basic mountains in it. But, of course, there is other lands to be finding. But yeah, I mean, that's a great start. Abundant growth this turn. Now, no matter what, abundant growth will be adding any mana. And you get that Magus down on turn 3. Right now, the King doesn't really have a great, play. Really wants to top deck a fetch land to play Ren and 6 here.
Yeah, that Blood Crypt is a pretty good draw. Turns on the Terminate here, but really rolling dice with double Mountain and like 3 multicolored spells and Indomitable Creativity that you can't cast. Ren and 6 off the top here
Oh,
is
banger there.
perfect draw here for Arias to fill out that turn 2 curve.
Oh, insane. Perfect draw here to be able to get Ren and 6 out there. The one problem is now you do have 2 mountains in plays, I guess, and you don't have Terminate available for Magus of the Moon currently. But the one thing you do have is just, well, Fable the Mirror Breaker as a red card, Indomitable Creativity as a red card. So you can still cast your spells into this, but that is still going to be awkward if Magus does hit the battlefield this turn.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the next turn plays out because in my mind, I feel like Magus is still going to be really good, denying the Terminate, denying the Ren and 6, and it's possible that it isn't actually as good as I thought it was because like when I first saw Magus, when I first saw the Ren and 6, tapping out of the stomping ground of the Blood Crypt to put it into play, I was kind of like that Breaking Bad meme where it's just like Walter White in the car and he's like, "No, don't do it, Jesse, don't do it."
Yes. That is my all-time favorite show. So yeah, question me on any Breaking Bad trivia. I love that show. Bryan Cranston's my hero, favorite actor
He,
by far.
dude, from Hal from Malcolm in the Middle to Walter White, it's
He's had a rough life,
crazy.
man. Rough life to get where he was, just being yelled at by his wife and Malcolm to where he is now. But anyways, y'all didn't come here to listen to Breaking Bad trivia. That's our podcast. We're gonna start, right?
Yeah. All right, so Magus of the Moon now in play here. The Forest with the Abundant Growth is able to still tap for any color of mana here, Plains and Temple Garden. So mana online for Aerys. Fable of the Mirror Breaker are going to come into play. Put a Goblin token that could make treasures that unlock, other colors here. But
Yeah,
as it stands, kind of locked out of the hand here.
100%. And that was a huge top deck. I was wondering if we were going to fire a Leyline's Binding off on just a Shaman token here when you really want to save some of your other removal spells. But with picking up another one and picking up a Solitude as well, I think you slam Leyline's Binding on a Goblin Shaman here. And now you got to wait till Reflection of Kiki Jiki goes to chapter 3 and then Creativity that. There's no Dwarven Mind shenanigans. You can discard some of these uncastable cards, Ren and 6 being the number one, but outside of that, this game is going to be really, really tough for the King. That was a great draw, though.
Yeah, another Fable, rinse and repeat, try to get more mana here, but maybe the disruption is just enough because creeping out of the hand here for our 4-colored player is Omnath, Locus of Creation. So we'll see if we can get that one into play. But in the meantime, there's a current situation, Red and 6 ticking up, getting more lands, Fable coming into play. I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but Area seems pretty favored here.
Very favored. Yeah, I would definitely say favored. Omnath is slightly awkward when you have Magus of the Moon on. We never have that kind of over the top crazy turn. So it's definitely not out of realm that this creativity can have multiple targets next turn. So this is going to be a really big next turn for the King. and a really kind of tough choice for Aerys here where you can cast any of your spells for sure. And you can Leyline's Binding the Shaman right now. Then if the king goes for creativity on the flipped reflection, then you can pitch Omnath to Solitude and boom, neither of you have anything. And we kind of start over from there. But we'll see. This is going to be the key turn of this match.
Yeah, what's fascinating to me is that, like, let's hypothesize that we end up in that situation. Who is actually ahead? Is it, the mono red player? Okay, it's not really mono red, but the mono mountains player in Indomitable Creativity, or the Magus player who does have two abundant growths on separate lands, so does have access to a decent amount of colors here.
Yeah,
It's
all the
tough to
colors.
say. Yeah.
Yeah, if it wasn't for that second Fable, I would say Aerys was miles ahead. But that second Fable was such a great draw, producing two creatures that I think it's much closer. And wow, this is maybe the one play that is going to guarantee Archons coming into the battlefield. So
Is this like a
I'm
reverse Doctor Strange moment where you had 14 million lines and only one would lose? And I've been in that seat so many times where I just find the one line that loses me the game. But even, let's be real here, right? Even if Archon does come into play, I don't think it's the end of the world because you can
no.
still Leyline Binding, right, to get rid of the Archon.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world. So this is not going to be GG by any means. It's going to be Aerys discarding one of the lands, getting rid of probably Solitude, maybe Magus. Getting rid of Magus is pretty rough. To be fair, it's there's a lot of things that can go wrong, but this definitely just puts the advantage bar right in the middle, and this is anyone's game.
Which is also pretty exciting. I mean, like let's also remember, like Aerys, in game 3 of the semifinals, went all the way down to 1 life here and crawled all the way back in. And I kind of get the feeling that we're gonna see this happen to the king as well, right? Like, has no mana available. We're gonna try to get Indomitable Creativity online with this Archon, see what we can get together, and maybe we'll just be able to steal this game and take down the entire tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. And of course, you can just sacrifice the Planeswalker. That's much better than choosing between one of these creatures. And now you have Leyline's Binding. Okay, this is much better. And now you have Solitude as well. Um, Now it is going to put the pressure back onto the King to find another creativity. As it stands, the King just has uncastables and no real way to push ahead. So if this draw step isn't there next turn where you either have Fable or number one creativity, then we're in a lot of trouble here for any King fans.
I think it's pretty ironic that this deck that just basically only has mountains is losing to a Magus of the Moon. Some sort of poetic justice here.
It is hilarious, and yeah, just shows the power of Fable. Because I put Fable, no big draw here, so huge advantage to Aerys. But I've been putting Fable in basically every modern deck, not necessarily because it's always better than most of the decks I played, the alternative Ledger Shredder, but it's just really plays around Magus of the Moon. It plays around Blood Moon, which is very popular right now with the huge rise of Amulet, at least for a week or two. I think it has calmed down quite a bit, but
And plus, like, it's such a low cost too, because you do have access to cards like Eladamri's Call, which means that this could be like a tutorable silver bullet. I would say,
yeah.
exactly what the kind of card that you want. Really good in some matchups and very low investment.
Totally agree with you. So now Solitude coming in, nothing off the top, and oh my, we might have to all gasp together. Could the King actually lose a game and force a game 3 in the finals of the Mana Trader series? It's kind of
No,
looking
no,
like
no, don't even say that. Don't even whisper that. That is yeah, that is no way that
it.
could happen.
And at this point with the Solitude, there's just no set of draws outside of, I suppose, Lightning Bolt from the King. Start with Lightning Bolt and then kind of go nuts, but you don't even have the Persist to bring the Archon back because it's stuck under Leyline's Binding. You do have the Beseiju, though, so that would unlock that. So Lightning Bolt is probably the draw that would keep the King into this. How
Well,
about an
how
8
about
drop
another
down?
Archon?
Yeah, yeah. That one's not looking great.
It's
But
funny because
yeah,
we do have like 8 lands in play, or are able to put 8 lands in play. We just Magus is like working overtime here. I mean, this is
yeah.
maybe on the draw, this is like the kind of corner case scenario where it's like super exciting, but I have to imagine in game 3 we'll see some sort of like plan for it.
And I think there was a plan, but there was a plan for Omnath. Magus was probably ignored a bit. We see Fatal Push, we see Terminate in hand, and those are great against Omnath. If you can ever go with the trigger on the stack of drawing a card and kill Omnath before you get the absurd abilities with it, that's great. That is a way to beat this deck. But I'm sure some lightning bolts were cut in exchange for those removal spells. So we might have to see a switch back to respect Magus of the Moon, even though Lightning Bolt is not a good removal spell in this matchup at all.
Yeah, and I think that's really just brilliant sideboarding too, right? Which is like you present a specific problem to your opponent, which is like, here are my 4/4s, here's my 4/7, here's my this, that, that. You definitely don't want lightning bolt, and then you go like, bang, got him. Here's my 2/2 that completely shuts you down unless you have the card that's bad against exactly the rest of my deck. So
Yeah.
what's interesting now is what if we go like down this little path of mind games? What if we cut the Magus to the Moon, or don't necessarily cut it, but put it on a little bit lower priority list to focus on punishing our opponent for maybe bringing back in a couple extra copies of Lightning Bolt on the draw?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you lose to a card that badly, your opponent, I mean, the person that lost to it, you're going to adjust, and your opponent knows the same thing. So absolutely love doing those kind of crazy pivots where I think I would love to see Aerys take out Magus of the Moon altogether and just go from there. It'll be interesting to see which player wins this because we'll get the interview process and we'll hear a little bit. There's a lightning bolt in hand from the king.
Oh yeah, I bet that's influencing the decision here as we go into game 3, the final game of the tournament here. 1-1 for each player. The King putting on a spectacular showing today, playing this indomitable creativity list. And on the other hand, Aerys on 4-color Omnath. I think the King is on a mulligan to 6 now, but does have red and 6 in the hand, compared to, check it out, Mom mid-range all-star Elish Norn.
Absolutely. And honestly, Elish Nord felt like a meme in these decks. Like, yeah, whatever, add one. If it survives, it's going to be super cool. But the ways that you kill that card have these triggered abilities coming into play, or it's Unholy Heat and it's got a big butt, like, so it's got 7 toughness. You can't deal with it with Unholy Heat. It truly has a lot of places in the metagame kind of on lock right now is the ways to kill that card. Teferi Bounce is like the best thing I can think of, in the metagame. So yeah, I think that card's impressive.
Yeah, and I think in this matchup specifically too, right? Like the Archon ETB does get shut down by Elish Norn, which is a
Mhm.
pretty big thing to be worried about, especially when you invest all these resources like Indomitable Creativity, the creature that you're getting rid of, maybe a treasure token here or there, and the payoff for that to be nothing
Wait,
is.
Anuraag, I got to stop you here. We're about to see something real bad. Collective Brutality is about to miss, right? Isn't it?
Whiff.
Oh, wait, it's non creature. Can you hit Abundant Growth? I thought it was instant or sorcery.
I think it's duress mode. Yeah, instants and sorceries. Sorry, not duress mode. Instants and sorceries. Yeah.
Just the old 2 mana, do nothing. That's not great. Wow.
All right. Well, this is not how you really want your finals to go. You're already on a mulligan, and then you mulligan effectively again with the collection brutality not doing anything.
And now this Solitude, both players know Solitude can just pitch to deal with the token before Archon even comes into play.
I'm just gonna say, push come to shove, I really, really hope we're pitching the Omnath and not the Elishnorn, just because it's like ethically, morally the correct thing to do. We must get Elishnorn into play on camera, winning the finals of this event for Twitter. Just we must do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Have mom taking it down here, and it's looking pretty good. Here's the nice thing about this situation here. I guess it does get a little iffier. I was just gonna say you can absolutely just slam Omnath here and have Solitude to protect, but you really can't because there is a second fetch land. You are able to creativity for 2 here. So yeah, I like that play. You have to leave Solitude plus Ephemerate open.
Yeah, good point. And that'll take care of everything that you're worried about, and then also potentially if there's a follow-up threat too. All in all, if I had to say it, I'd say the advantage bar massively leaning towards the 4-color player side.
100%. 100%. The tools are there. And I mean, even if you just jam Elish Norn next turn, we'll see if one of these lightning bolts was taken out for terminate, which would have been an insane answer to this. you
Yeah,
know, just,
right.
just the
Mind
pivot.
games.
Yeah, 100%. and now you don't even really want to go for this. Ephemerate might have been a card that was not known, and then you for sure go for this when we saw Collector Brutality. Yeah, of course it wasn't because it would have been taken. So yeah, they
Mhm.
don't know about Solitude. So we'll see what card is going to be pitched, if it's Elish Norn or if it's Omnath, to go Solitude and Ephemerate here before these come into play.
There it is. Solitude. No, pitching the Ellisnor. No.
No, well, mom, still helped out the kids, I guess. What a mom should be doing, huh?
Yeah, good enough. And I mean, Omnath also probably going to be just as good at taking the game, taking over the game here. I
If
guess
not better, yeah.
one big thing to be aware of is that Elishnorn doesn't actually prevent the Archon attack trigger, so it isn't immune completely in this matchup. And then also cards like Terminate do exist, so I think this is the stable. I want to win the tournament. I want $3,000. I'm a god gamer, and this is what I got to do to win. Kind of move, so I
Yeah,
can get
that
behind
makes
it.
sense. That makes sense. I honestly I already screwed up to Fairy Time Raveler, a card that's been around forever. So I was just gonna wait till mom hit the battlefield and then just give that card a reread. But now it looks like we don't have to.
Don't worry. I mean, that's why you and I are here in the booth and not in the finals right now, right? Just
Absolutely.
different time, different life. Yeah.
I gotta play Modern next weekend though, so I gotta learn here real quick, huh? I've been in Pioneer mode. All right, but here's Lightning Bolt for Solitude. And then you have just Archon with 6 mana, so you're still a ways away. This Omnath gets to just go and play. It can deal 4 damage with the creature itself with a couple fetch lands paired up, and you can attack. So the king is left with 1 draw step to deal with this specific Omnath. And then if that's dealt with, has to deal with the next Omnath. So the king might be dethroned here real quick.
Yeah, and so what is the best draw here then? What can we possibly top deck to, put ourselves in a better position? Because yeah, I'd be really surprised. It would be great to see if like the metagame decision in
That's
sideboarding,
it.
we cut the terminates for like lightning bolts and some sort of thing here. Or oh, what is this?
So Beseju to deal with this, then you get a land back. I guess you can get a land back and get a Dwarven Mine. You get a fetch land, you get a Dwarven Mine, you can block Omnath and then bolt it. So, okay, we're live. We're live. Oh, but actually, as I say that, with Beseju bringing in a land, you can crack both fetches and deal the 4 damage right now. But, that is still leaving you without any fetch lands active. We'll be putting the king down to 4, and then the Omnath next turn won't have enough lands to make 3 land drops. So yeah, this Dwarven Mine will be able to do it.
I'm now seeing how this goes wrong. Disaster.
Impressive, impressive. Disaster being avoided. But to be fair, Aerys cannot play 3 lands next turn. Oh, of course. Oh, that's really smart. You put the triggers on the stack and then Ren doesn't even get to activate. Wow, big brain play there from Aerys to win this tournament.
Yeah,
That was
there it is.
awesome.
Omnath in the red zone, swinging in, turning right from 4 to 0. Lightning bolt, not a terminate.
That was great. Putting those triggers on the stack to make sure that Ren doesn't get an activation. Really awesome stuff. And Aerys is gonna be the champion of the Mana Trader series in February, featuring Modern. We're going to be seeing Aerys and the King in the end of the year event, and just huge props. That was awesome, Anuraag.
Yeah, I was super excited. I mean, honestly, okay, look, I made one called shot this weekend, this Sunday, and I was wrong. But the games, the process, the way to get there, the way the King was, just taken down in the finals by the 4-color deck at the hands of ours. Great gameplay, and honestly, what I'm most excited about, 4 colors back, baby. Don't say it
Yeah,
was gone.
4 colors back, but also, yeah, you did make that called shot, and you got it wrong. So, Anuraag, knock it off, okay? I mean, if we're gonna have you back in the booth, we don't make mistakes here, okay? I've had it up to here with your mistakes, Anurag. Okay. Oh wait, we're still live. Oh, never mind. Okay, we'll get that
Oops.
to the broadcast. Just kidding, because I butchered a few lines, but that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is Aerys takes it down, and we're gonna have an interview with them after a little break. We're gonna take a little break and get all that stuff set up. So don't go anywhere. You're gonna be hearing from the champ here right outside of this break. So see you soon. All right, everybody, welcome back here to coverage with our champion, Aerys. Congratulations, you did it.
Thanks, yeah. It's I'm so tired.
Yeah, what time is it for you right now? Because you're French, right?
Yeah, I'm French, so it's
Okay.
midnight. But I played the paper tournament today, so I woke up at 6 a.m. too. So,
Wow. Well, we got to ask, how did you do in that paper tournament?
not so good. Not so good.
Okay, then we'll scratch that from the record. We're not going to ask you about this because what we're going to ask you about is this event. You just took it down with 4-color mid range. Tell us a little bit about why you chose this deck for the Mana Traders field.
Um, I just had the feeling that the metagame was quite fair. I play a lot of Magic Online, and my matchup against Murktide is like really, really good.
Yeah,
And I had a good feeling about the deck. And if there is a question about that, I played 60 cards over 70 or 66 or any any other
any of
because
that nonsense, right?
I want to see my 4 solitudes as much as possible, especially for the Hammer Time matchup because
Okay.
you want solitudes.
Okay, so yeah, I have played this elemental deck in the past as well, and I had the same kind of feeling. You were just a Murktide crusher whenever we were playing it, even when it was Yorion back in the day. But this deck kind of fell out of favor, as of late. Like, what brought you back? Just the fact that everything is fair and like combo decks kind of frighten you with this deck, or what don't you want to play against?
Rock the Scam. I don't want to play against Scam. Burn can be tough. Even if we have Omnath, it can be too late. So
Yeah.
burn can be a tough one. Living End can be quite tough. It depends on our sideboard. My sideboard is quite low because Living End is not present. But if we load our sideboards, it's great.
Okay. Okay. And then I want to take you back to that top 4 match where you are playing against Scam. You are playing against let me double check this. Yeah. Miss Gabolik. I'm sure I'm butchering their name, but we joined your match basically right for game 3, where it was the turn 1 double grief you and things looked extremely grim. Tell me what was going through your mind in that game.
My opening hand was, when it's Scam, you can't win through a turn 1 Grief Ephemerate if you don't have the turn 1 Grief Undying, if you don't have the nuts. So I don't play around that sequence, basically. I just play around the Ragavan Dirty Moon sequence. And he had it, and I just had to draw. Like my BPM was 100, like way too high. So the Teferi into Risen Reef into Solitude was like nuts. I mean, I just had luck all around the tournament just to
Love it.
win.
I absolutely love it. You need a little luck with a big tournament like this. Anuraag, you got any questions for our champ here?
Yeah, I mean, the one question I'm dying to know is 4-color is back. How do you feel about Elishnorn? That card has been on my radar, and I was sad to see it get exiled in the final game, but has it been good for you?
Yeah, it's insane. Like, it's really, really, really good. It houses a lot of decks, and there is a lot of decks like Creativity can't deal with it out of the baby Tef, but they don't play that many. And no, it's really it's a one-off because you don't want to draw it often, and it's often a solitude pitch. But it's a force of will pitch, so it works too.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
I mean,
that's great. Yeah.
that card is incredible to me. Like,
Mm.
if it had 6 toughness, it would
Yeah,
be, basically unplayable because Unholy can just deal with it straight away. But I keep thinking of all the cards that's in the metagame that actually deal with it. And it's like the Terminates out of the sideboard of Shadow or Terminates in some creativity decks. And then Teferi Bounce. That seems like the only good way to deal with that card.
and the thing is, it's also just the body vigilance and housing the enter the battlefield stabilizes a lot of boards. Even if you don't go with Omnath Risen Reef, just Electional on its own blocks a lot of boards.
Makes a ton of sense. Well, Aerys, is there anyone you want to thank that maybe helped you test or anything? Or are you kind of a lone tester?
No, I actually have a team. They played the tournament, so they went X2 and X3 during the Swiss, so not making the
Oh.
cut, but Tei and Xeno1 quite known. He was on Glimpse Casino.
Okay. Did they all play the same lists as you all test together, play the same deck, or?
No, we play what we like, but we test it
Sure.
together.
I think we watched your friend on one of the feature matches playing the Glimpse deck, and that was
Yeah.
really exciting when they put was it one with the multiverse or something into play? That was the first time I had ever seen that card in play, and it was very strong.
Oh yeah. They got paired against Demir Mill on our feature match area, and we had to laugh about that with the 4
Oh yeah, I
Emrakul for
remember
the
that. Yeah,
main.
they have
That
4 main
was
deck Emrakuls, right?
all right. Well, thank you so much, Aerys, for joining us. You are the champion. You're qualified for the end of the year event here in December. Have you played in that? Did you play in that one this last December or?
No, I played my trader series, but not qualified. It's my first top 8 in the series, so
Oh, gotcha.
relieved.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, the end of the year series, you got to add a couple formats. We usually play 3 formats. We put you to the test here in 3 of the bigger formats that are going on at the time. But you'll be competing there. You won yourself $3,000. Big congrats to you. We're gonna have you stick around just for our final outro. But thank you so much to everyone who watched this broadcast. Anuraag, thank you for joining me in the booth on such late notice. Adrian, thank you for working the producing stuff in the background. And remember, if you want to be here, if you want to be in Aerys' spot, getting interviewed by Ross Merriam and myself next month, we're going to be playing standard. That qualifier season will be starting not this coming Monday, but usually the Monday after. And if you want to get a loan program and don't have it yet, exclamation point Bash Bros in the chat. That will give you 15% off your first 2 month subscription. So once again, Aerys, huge congratulations, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.